is this going? Do these videos? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't care.
So then, like, you know, you get an IP address, and you're like, well, this doesn't tell me anything. How can I get more information? Because sometimes it's not even a domain name. So what we're going to be learning about today mostly is Nmap, and that's a good way to get some information through ports that might be open on the system. And after we do that, we're going to go through a little bit on Linux basics that we'll be using to construct a script to get us information on subdomains on like any website that you can pull the index file from, which is like pretty much most websites. They'll start with a index file appended to them. That's hidden. Okay, so to get into it, what is Nmap? I kind of briefly explained about it, and if you guys have it installed, you can do a really useful command, man nmap, and that'll bring you to the manual page. And that's just like everything about Nmap. But what it does is you take an IP address or a domain name, you run nmap and then your flags, and it will return information that it can pull from that system and the ports that it can open, and give you information about those open ports. Or if it can't open them, it'll return filtered or closed and say, okay, these aren't open, I didn't get any useful information, and then you can go from there. So in the picture I have here, it's running a basic like TCP scan, which it'll go through most of the common ports and pull up what it returns as open. So it grabbed port 22, which is SSH, port 80, which is HTTP, which is usually a website, and then port 9929 and 31337, which I don't know what those are, but it pulled it. So that's what's running on that domain or IP. And you guys can scan that too and see what you get. So a lot of this is going to be kind of interactive because I want you guys to leave this like not with me just yelling something at you, but like you saying, oh, dude, I ran this scan and I kind of understand what it's doing maybe a little more and how I can get information from IP addresses. Okay, so next we're going to go into some common flags or like options that you'll do in addition to just the Nmap. So back here you see that it's just Nmap, right? But a lot of times you want to add like little tags or flags on there that specify what options you want the scan to do. And some common ones are -S_C, which will run like default scripts. So if it got port 80, you might, if you added -SC, it might pull like the HTTP header. So the very first line that comes up, or the title, sorry, the very first line that comes up on the web page. SV will get you information on those. So the open ports, it might give you like, if it's HTTP, it will give you what service is running that. So if it was built using Apache and that's what's running HTTP, it'll return that and usually the version of Apache that's running that service. And then -O, you actually need admin privileges to do that, and it'll give you it'll try its best to give you the operating system of the IP address that you're scanning. It's not always accurate, but a good amount of times it'll give you something that's useful. So that way you know if you're dealing with like a Windows server or a Linux or something. And tag D, and we'll go into a little more, but it's not too important. It's kind of like if you're getting really in depth about the packets, which is like, you probably don't need to do that, but it can be useful at certain times. Stealth scan is good because if you don't want to make a lot of noise, if you're scanning a lot of ports, but you want to reduce that, you can do stealth scan and it'll take the handshake that Nmap does. So it'll say, hey, are you open? And then the service will respond yes or no. And then usually if you don't do the stealth scan, it'll say, okay, I know that you're open, and then it does another handshake. But if you want to reduce that noise, it'll just do the first two parts and it won't do the last acknowledgement part. So that's useful if you're scanning like lots of ports and you don't want to, if you want to reduce the overall noise. Because the thing with Nmap is it's completely legal, right? So you can do this, but usually if you're going to scan like the school network, some guy in IT is going to be like, who's scanning all of our ports and figuring out what's open and what's not. So it's going to raise some like flags to someone saying, what, are we getting attacked? You know, why did all of our ports get scanned? And that kind of stuff. So when you do this stuff, you want to try to reduce the amount of noise that you're doing, either by targeting specific port ranges, which is the next thing, which is tag P. So you can specify if you want to just do, oh, port 80. I just want to know if they're running a web page. So you just do tag P 80, and it'll return yes or no. And yeah, the last thing is tag T and then a number. It can go from 0 to 5, I believe, and it's a timing scheme. So if you want it to run faster or slower, you can specify. So higher you go on that, the faster it'll run. Yeah, and then tag A is a combination of SC, SV, and O, and I believe one more that I'm forgetting, which is really useful because you don't have to run all those. You can just do tag A. Sometimes when you guys are running these, you'll get something that says, see if I can do it for you. So I can't show you, but it'll say that host is down, which means that it's not perceiving, it's not sure if the host is up or not. So you run tag PN and it'll still scan it, even if it's telling you that it's down. And then, yeah, these output modes we won't go over because you probably won't need to use them. Before I get into this, let's have you guys do a couple of scans. There's a couple of servers that you guys can try this on. I'll write them on the board real quick. One of them is scanme.nmap.org, and you saw that earlier. And this is the one that Nmap hosts. It'll have probably the same services that you saw earlier if you caught that. And you can try the different flags that I mentioned and see the different results based on what your options that you're including are. And then once you guys do this server, you can do another one that Rojan set up for me, which has a different set of ports. And depending on what flags you get, you might find different information on there. So yeah, this is kind of the interactive portion of the workshop, if you will. So if you guys have questions or you need help like running these commands or you want to know more about certain ones, just let me know. I'll be walking around. Oh, yeah, so you're close. So instead of typing the domain name, you want to do Nmap first, and then space, and then you can either run the domain name or include some. Okay, so means that it's not sure if it's open, which usually means that. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So let's go over flags a little more. So flags are your options. A full command for this would probably look something like nmap tag A and then that, right? So you're running this command, which is nmap. You're specifying this flag, which is the aggressive mode. And then you're going to run it on this domain. And if you're not sure what other flags you can include, you can type man, like a man, and then nmap. And it'll pull up a whole document on different flags and information about nmap and everything. And I'll write that one over here. that a little clearer now? So then, not just that, but then include the domain name. So the scan B. And then for the state. And it takes a little bit of time to run these, so if you hit the up or down arrows, you can see how much time is left. Yeah,
You can see an example on the screen, so I have it displayed there. You guys can probably use that.
I should have done that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So you see the difference how when you do SD, right? Yeah. So that's running the scripts, and then it gave you that's one of the default scripts, which I haven't gone over the different script choices. That's one of the default scripts is getting the SSH key. So it has SSH open, and it gave you right. Why would they? Are they like any kind of information or something? It kind of depends. If there's more, that one in particular is not very useful. But if there's something like or like SMB, right? So that's a file share system. So people can upload their file share from different yeah, it's not. But if it were and you ran the script option, it would try to do a default volume. And if that came back positive, then you can know that you can log that in without knowing the script. Right? That can be yeah. Usually, yeah, it will tell you. So it should be done soon. Hey guys. How you doing? Any questions? Any questions? Oh, y'all doing okay? Oh, yeah. Sometimes yeah. Sometimes if you do tag A, it takes really long because it's doing a ton of, it's basically doing all this in one. So if you do less options, it'll go along. How y'all doing? Yeah. Oh, okay, so a certain scans like tag O and I guess self scan. These privileges. So you're assigned in as user, right? So type sudo in front of that, and that should ask you for the password. And if you have the options for just like admin privileges on Windows, it'll let you. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. I'll put up the other IP address right now, so you guys can take a look at that too. Oh, the output, or no, that's input. Getting out. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Like after, I guess do it now.
Yeah.
And then yeah. So they know all the scans.
Okay, sure. You mean examples other than this, or?
So yeah, just so that example of that on the scan view that I know.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what flags you guys included, but if you want to see the tag B option, you can specify verbose mode, which is stuff that it'll tell you like tons of information about packets. If you go really high on the numbers there, it goes from like -4 if you wanted to omit information. If you do -4, it won't even tell you anything back. It'll just send this stuff and you don't get any information back. I haven't found a use case for that yet, but apparently there is one because it was made. So if you do that and then you do scan me. And so it goes into a little more detail, specifically how, so it tells you when it discovered them, how it discovered them, which is, this is the server sending back a packet to you. you guys don't know what packets are, it's basically just how computers communicate over TCP and UDP, which goes more into like networking than I would care to do for this. But if you have questions about that, you can ask me afterwards. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So next is the IP address, which I forgot that Rojan got me. I think it's 50. No, it's gone. I want to say it's 50.116.9.174. So if you run your scan, and then just instead of this, the scan me, you just put this, it should pull information from this server. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put it up over here too. Scan?
I just put it there because on the video.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, my bad.
If you do a basic Nmap, no tags, I don't actually know what it runs when you do that. So then you get a host teams down. This is a perfect example of when you can do tag pn and hopefully still get some results. Did we crash it?
Hopefully it's not. It's good.
Okay. Yeah, so we get some SSH, NetBIOS, Microsoft DS, and whatever PPP is. So at the very least, we can surmise from this that it's probably a Windows box that's running Microsoft DS. Let's see if we can get more information by doing sudo tag though.
What is tag?
OS.
It's not Windows.
Oh, that made me look like a fool.
No, it's good.
Oh, is that just SMB then?
Yeah.
Oh, then we can do SC. Pull some default scripts.
Hopefully it runs fast. So does anyone have any questions so far in terms of what he has covered? No questions? Cool.
Yeah, so the only bad thing about Nmap is that it takes some time. The more options that you put in, the longer it takes, and certain options will make it take longer. And also the amount of ports that you scan can make it take longer as well. Everything good? Yeah. Cool.
What happened? Oh, that's where you're in. This is probably Italian.
campus.
Yeah.
Offer close, I don't know why.
They gave me a lot more than last time.
It's close. So I don't know why it's showing up.
Oh yeah. Normally, it shouldn't return close things, but sometimes I guess it will. Yeah. So one more thing I want to try with this is SC.
Probably clear your screen.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So if we run this one more time with one of the ports that showed up was 445 and it was running Microsoft DS. I want to retract what I said. That doesn't necessarily mean it's running what's it called, Windows, but it does mean that it's most likely running Samba or SMB, which is a file share system. And if we run the script tag, hopefully it will run correctly and return, it'll run the default scripts, and one of those is a login attempt for anonymous login. And if it can log in through anonymous login, it'll tell us that, and then we know that we don't even need credentials. We can just go into there on that port with anonymous login and have access to their file system or file share system. Yeah, so we get some more information that it ran the OS discovery. It's running Windows 6.1, which is actually Samba. We get the net BIOS from a script. We get the SSH host key from a script. And the security mode. So that's a little example of what scripting can do with Nmap. Did yours run again? I don't know if you Oh yeah. What's that? Okay, yeah.
As the Nmap goes. Yeah. So you see install it.
I'm gonna ask him to
Oh yeah.
Windows, yeah. I noticed that too. I'm not lying. Can you install us in Nmap for like this?
some Windows specific.
CSV decline as well.
I'm gonna ask him to cover this.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
It might even cover your advanced people.
Oh yeah, it does. So this is another option with, thank you, Rojan. This covers a specific script. If you don't want to do -sc, you can also specify the scripts, and there's a whole directory. If you type in, and I'll show it after I run this, but if you type in locate .sne, it'll pull up all the Nmap scripts possible that Nmap can run. Yeah. Oh. If you wanted to specify one of those, that would be a good way to take a look at all the different scripts and stuff. But for now, we'll just run this. Thank you, Rojo. Oh, and the other thing about the other thing about this is that it uses the tag P, which is specifying one port. So I don't want to go through all those other ports that don't have anything to do with SMB. while I'm running an SMB script, right? So you just specify that port, and there you go. It'll run that on that one port. And it looks like what this script does is it's printing all of the different shares and trying to, I believe, get access. And it's telling us the anonymous access, which can read and write, and also the user access. And it does that for all of these shares that it sees, which is IPC share, the internal share, and the print share, which is printer drivers. So that's neat. So just to show the different scripts you can do, locate.sne, and it'll search through and print all the different scripts that Nmap has to offer, which is a lot. Yeah. Okay. So is everyone cool with Nmap? Did your scan finish? Still? Okay. How about did yours finish? You didn't get that message again, right? That has to do with like concerning messages. So this is part of the script. It's looking at the security mode of the. So message signing is like if you're sending a message and you want to assign you're sending that one. So it's disabled. So if you were putting it in the file there. Okay, so everyone cool with Nmap? Hopefully your scan finishes, but okay, well.
Is he having issues?
He was running PN and it was going slow. I think the servers, he had some message come up.
I'll check it out.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on then. Okay, so some next thing that we're going to get into is working on something completely different than Nmap, which is building a script to pull subdomains. And a subdomain example is like, let's say we're working with Fullerton, right? Do you know any ones off the top of your head? Oh, actually.
ECS.Fullerton.
There you go. So regular, I'm going to erase some of this so you have some space. So regular Fullerton domain is just fullerton.edu, right? And a subdomain, which you wouldn't probably know by common knowledge if you only knew fullerton.edu, would be ECS Fullerton.edu. So that's just an example of a subdomain, which is we're going to make a script which can pull subdomains from an index file of a website. It sounds a little complicated, but it boils down to like 3 commands. To get to that, however, we got to go over a little bit of Linux. If you guys don't know common Linux commands, we'll be going over a little bit of that right now. So piping, cat, grep, and sort. So that way we can run commands efficiently with pipes. We can cat files and stuff with cat, which is printing the contents. We can grep specific contents of files using grep, which is just getting specific contents. If you want to get like a word out of a whole file, it'll pull all the times that that word comes up. And then we can sort the contents of that file however we'd like, usually by unique to omit redundancies and stuff like that. So piping, it's when you run 2 commands on 1 line. If you want to cat a file to pull all the contents, let's say you have a really long file, it's like 50,000 lines, and you want to just pull out specific words. Let's say it's like this that comes up like 50 times, and you don't want to pull that. You want to pull a different word that's just A, and that only comes up once. If you cat that whole file, you're going to have 50 instances of this and 1 A. So if you want to do, let's do this real quick. So make a file called test. And we'll echo. Is there a quick way to echo something like 50 times? Probably not. Give you guys a quick example. We'll do this is. Then we'll do grep. So if we want to cat that file, it'll print all the contents, right? All of them, right? But if we want to just get a certain word, we can grep that word. So we'll grep. And then we specify the file that we want to take that word from. And we get all instances of that, right? But what if we want to combine that and we'll cat that and then grep like test. Oh, I didn't put a word and I can't see. Cool. So that's one way to do that. That kind of covers all three of those. So then we'll talk about sorting. If I wanted to sort that file, you can just sort the file. I think by default it does it by alphabetical. But what we'll be using here in a minute is sort by unique, which is useful for getting rid of those 5 or 4 greps that I included. There you go. So it just pulls it once. Oh, we'll come back to Shodan. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. So this is a script that I want you guys to write, and I will go through it with you guys and explain kind of what's going on. So let's do it together. Let's start with the first line, which is a comment, but also an indicator of what file type we'll be working with, which is a bash file. In other words, it's a scripting file that can be used on Linux. And we'll go ahead and make one of those right now. So let's do bash script shell. And you don't have to touch it first. You can just go ahead and nano into it, and it'll make it for you. And we always want to specify that first line, which is, I believe it's /bin or bin/bash. And I'll double check. I forgot the slash in front. So this tells when you run a command, right? It's saying, what kind of file is this? Oh, it's a bash file. So then it knows to do commands and other things like that that a bash file can do. You know, like a CPP file can do code where a text file can't, right? It's kind of that sort of idea. The next line, we're going to exit this real quick and make another file called subdomains. And this will be our output file that we'll be throwing all of our subdomains into. So for now, we'll leave it blank. And we'll go back into here. And we're going to make sure that it's cleared by doing this little sideways caret. And that will clear the file, even if there's anything in it. It'll just overwrite. So then the next thing we want to do is use a separate command called wget. What that is, think about it like webget. So you're going to get an HTML file from the web, essentially. So here you have wget https github index HTML. So you got the domain, you got the way that it's going to connect, and you got the specific file that you want to get. Let's use this one for now, not the one above it that I have commented out. Got to delete that. So just to show a quick example of what wget does, we'll run that first. So if we type that in, it will actually take that web file and download it onto our computer. So there we have that index.html file. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can everyone see that down there? Here, I'll clear it and do it again. So we run it, we ls, and then it should be right here. And if we cap that file, we'll see that it's the entire HTML of GitHub's index page. So if you go to www.github.com, that's this, or it should be this file. So let's go back into our script and add that line in, because we want to make sure, since we could do this all manually, but it's a script, so we want to make sure we have every part in here. That way we don't have to worry about it. And we can just run the script in one little line. So that should pull the index file for us. Okay, so the next part is the most complicated line. It's where we're going to be doing a lot of things. We're doing grep with certain tags, and we're doing some regex, which, well, I'll get into in a second. And then we're doing some sort, and we're putting it all into a file, right? So here we have grep, and we have the string that we're looking for and the source file that we're taking it from. We're going to sort that by unique characters that we find with the grep, and we're going to put that into the subdomains.txt file. And if you want to know what these tags are, give me just a second. The tag E will allow for our regex, and the tag O specifies that we're going to output it to a file. So let's back up a little bit and to explain what regex is. It's basically a way to specify parameters of what kind of strings you want. So with this bracket, 0,15 bracket, we're saying, okay, I'm looking for 0 to 15 characters before github.com. So if we were doing it on Fullerton, we would get 3 characters before Fullerton, right? That's within our range, so it would pull that subdomain from this file. Is that clear? Hopefully. Is it? Okay, I'll run that example for you guys. So we'll do grep tag E, tag O. Okay, so what this does, it's going through that index file again that we took, which is just the base page for GitHub, and it's going to pull everything that's 0 or more characters before GitHub, right? So we got API, we got regular GitHub, and we got lab, and we got enterprise, and I think that's all we could fit with 15 characters. I haven't tried it with more or less, but you can kind of change that as you want and play with it. Funny enough, you could probably add that to the end. If you want to move this regex over here, you might be able to pull some directories of GitHub. I haven't tried that either. Might work. Probably would. You might have to play around with that a bit too. So let's go in and let's add this line. We're going to add a little more to this, which is we want to sort this, right? Because this is kind of ugly output. It's a lot of redundancies and it's just not organized very well. So if we do the sort command, we do tag unique, and we run that again, we get just one instance of all of them, and they're nice and sorted alphabetically, which is cool. And so our last step is to put that into the subdomains file that we made. And then we can cat that. And there they all are. That way it's not, when you run the script, it doesn't flood up your terminal or anything. It's just nicely outputted into a file. So I'll give you guys a minute if you're typing that out, and then I'm going to add it to my bash script, and then we'll run that and see that the file should be the same. So let me know if you guys are good. Yeah, you're good. How's everyone else? Y'all good? Okay. I'm going to add that to my script then.
Was everyone able to grab the subdomains he has?
Oh yeah, that's another good question. How you guys doing on that? Is it running for you guys? Are you guys good? Make it tight. No, you got a problem?
Maybe we'll do a walk around.
Okay, yeah.
Make sure everyone has
It
it.
is a good part. That's kind of okay. Thank you. What's up? So usually if you get a bash error like this, it's telling you that you wrote something wrong with it. Because we know that that command works, but it might just be a formatting error. So run that, and there's more progress. So let's take another format. So you want to end it. And so you're missing the file. So let's go. It's a text editor. Okay. Yeah, so go back up a bit here. So that's where our problem lies. The WK command is really close, but it's not quite. So every website, usually they'll host it on index.html or index.html file. And really, instead of the slash, it would be dot. And so, and then that by control of exit. And you run that again. So passage. Sorry. I got a brain for it. That's how you run a batch. You need an XH model. That's stupid. You can actually run that too. We'll do that once I see it. Or if the permission's there. So another command I'll use think about is change the or modify the permissions of a file, right? So we'll do that, and then we want to add. You can do this in several ways. You can do +X or 7 for read, write, and execute permissions for user, root, and I think that's it. So So we run that again.
Are you already in our stuff?
Another thing Linux has is autocomplete. So if you're like typing something, like I know that this should auto. If you're typing something that's not autocompleting, so that ran our W again. Up here, you can see the index that you turn it. You have to be not your name. So with LS, yeah, you don't know what LS is, it'll list all the files and their current directory. So thinking about a directory, it's like if you have the file explorer. Let's say you're this is your directory, it will list all the files. So there's no index.html. The LS again, there should be index.html. So we're going back to the round 3. That part makes sense. No, yeah. Captain contents of the file.
He's going over the subdomain assignment I give them.
And that's it, right?
And then Shodan. And then that's it.
Type that line in. Right there. It's just that whole line.
Yeah.
So sorry. The one that says grep dash d dash all that. So type that in. Don't do the type. How's everyone with you?
That's what I'm saying right now. So I see
You know this? So what you're doing is you're using this file. You didn't have any work.
You can actually sit and call it the chair if you want to.
Yeah.
I work like it's not long. It's a lot of big useful. You know,
Oh yeah, Instructor. You guys are gonna have fun today.
Oh, so let's just specify the output file. Oh, that's the vote. Sorry, the E is the regex, so that's these little lines right here. That is, it's going to take 0 characters for 40. Yeah. You got that too? Oh, so the next one would be that whole graph that we all that. And so what that line does, it will graph using regex. And regex is just that curly 0 on the 15. And that's specifying I want to get 15 characters before 0 to 15 characters before GitHub. And you're going to pull that from the index file that you have. And then sort the results. Try that command out before you put it in here and see what you get. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, I got him.
Hell yeah. All right, now do the rest of the stuff. See that little line, the straight line?
Yeah.
That's a pipe. So what that pipe does, it allows you to take the output of the first part and put it into the second part. So we're taking all this, right? And we're putting it, and we're gonna sort it, and then we're gonna put those little two angle brackets.
Yeah.
Puts it into the text. So yeah, run that whole command, and it'll put it into the text. And then you can add that to your script. Oh, after sorting. Yeah. So anytime you put a tag, you'll usually need a space. Cool. So you don't see anything, right? So that's because we put it in the file. So how do you get the contents in the file?
Oh, cat. Oh,
Yeah. So type cat and then put the subject main file that we made. And then remember the autocomplete. So you didn't type it all, right? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Thanks. Yeah.
I already specified page one.
Oh, that's the right. So, all right, so you're doing tier 15. Yeah. The entire file or like a no. So, okay. So, it's a combination of regex and ref. So that entire thing in quotes is what we're looking for. We're looking for a line that matches.
We're doing CPT.
That, and then a variation of zero.
So no
You
more.
failed.
No more.
Yeah, you failed.
Otherwise,
So you're giving the new bot.
That's fine. The rule is not supposed to be good. I said it. So.
Is everybody good? With
But I like that idea.
All good?
And
No more
they
questions?
can't slap
If
it.
you do, no worries. Just let me know so I can clarify. Okay, so we're gonna move on to something called Shodan, which is it's pretty cool. It's neat, you know. It's a weird way to snoop on people, really.
We got it unblocked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Shodan, a little bit of background behind Shodan is that it used to be blocked on campus because, you know, it's kind of like, it's public, but it's kind of invasive in a way. But we're going to do it anyway. So it's a website called Shodan. If you just Google that, it'll come up. And what it pulls is metadata from IP addresses. So you'll see that in a second. That sounds kind of scary, but it's really not. It's just like, let's just type webcams. If you want to filter, there's filtering options, but you'll need to make an account, which is free, but it's pretty cool because you can specify like cities, ports, all that sort of things. And so if we just search up webcams and we scroll a little bit, we might actually find an open one. But, oh, I guess you only get one page of results on without an account. So we'll just go here in Pakistan to some IP address while looking up webcams. And we get a picture of most likely someone's webcam. I know, it's not webcam.
That's RDP.
I know. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's still, you know, I don't know.
Do you want webcams?
Yeah, but I'm not signed in on this, so.
Let me sign in.
Yeah, you want
Do
it?
you get Shodan
stuff.
free for students?
You do?
Yeah.
That's weird that it was blocked then.
Yeah, no, it's our school that decided it will be fun to block it. And then someone from IT was in our workshop, and we're showing Shodan by using a VPN. So they knew blocking it won't work for us. So now it's unblocked. So another, I'm just gonna take over real quick to show you guys something, because once you log in on Shodan, there's a option where you should be able to see, let me see where it is. Explorer. If you click on that, there's already things you can click on to search stuff. So you click on webcams, and some of these I'm not gonna try to go. But if you go on those are publicly accessible webcams of people's home. So you can kind of spy on people. Depending on other things, you can also find industrial control systems. So that includes Hoover Dam, for example. If it's open, you can flood Las Vegas. There's net camps. All of these, like most of these are, if you see, like it's searching based on a query. So when you put net camp, it searches it here. And then some of these are 401, but if you see this option, this is what I was looking for. There's images. So what happens is on this one, we just have one, but I could probably try putting webcam here and see if it gives me anything. So there we go. So this is like real footages. It takes picture of those and you get to see people's interior. So someone's living room. You can just keep going next. So Shodan has a lot of creepy things you can do. The other good part of it is sometimes softwares have security issues and it gets patched out and published to the users. You can use Shodan to like find those vulnerable instances because you can look up version numbers. So in terms of a hacker way, if you want to spy on people, that's on you. But you can also use it to exploit, like mass exploit companies. Because if you probably heard 2 years ago, there was a ransomware called WannaCry that affected a lot of universities. And it was through an exploit that NSA had, and it got leaked. So you could just use the version that needed. So for example, Windows 7, a specific one, search on Shodan, get the list of IP address, because if you noticed, if I go back here, another good part of Shodan is you can export the result. So I can just create a result here, click it, create report, and it will send me a report in my email with all of the data. So you can create a free one. You haven't created, so I don't have any reports in the past, but it will have those for you, and you can use like similar tools that just Williams or with gripping stuff to get IPs and then attack them right away. So for the next few minutes, feel free to look around Shodan, ask Will questions. He can answer those as well. And if you have any questions about Shodan, just use your school email and you still have free access to Shodan. You won't have to pay for any membership fee.
Yeah, I'll be messing around with it up here. So
Yeah, you'll be able to see.
See what you can find at Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
logged in. Oh, you
That
are.
was a
So
good
let me
one,
show
yeah.
you some what's it called, filters. So you do city and then bulletin, and you can pull everything up in here. I don't know if you can narrow it down more than that, but that's about as small as you can get. And you'll see these little requests, right? So if you want to filter that some more, typically a 200 request is a success. So if we search that, hopefully we'll find something that's open. And yeah, let's go here.
Yeah.
That's not us.
No, I didn't find Cal State Fullerton. I just looked up stuff in Fullerton, but
Nice.
so you can see what kind of stuff that they're running and general stuff like their operating system. Just another way to do some recon. Some ports that are open.
Do you want to see Cal State?
Oh, can you actually specify the school?
You can probably.
I think
Good luck.
School, we should definitely.
If you use your school email, it'll be free. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a student membership.
Oh, let's just do Fresno.
For example, here's Cal State Fresno's result whenever it shows up. And there's also images. I don't know why we have images there, but we'll see. So there we go. These are all Cal State General, just not Cal State Fullerton. So these things are remote desktops that you guys can, sometimes you can see it live, meaning if someone's logging in. There's someone's camera. So as I said, if you see the images option, you'll have a pretty good time on Shodan looking things up.
Do you see how that's a staff room? Yeah.
You can also find things like routers. Yeah, sometimes they'll be open too. I think I looked that up earlier. I'm gonna see if I can find one. Like I went to it and like asked me for a username and password. I didn't do. Yeah, I didn't try it. So yeah, go for it. You want
We have this room till 6, so we can just mess around with Soda.
Pretty much. I'm done with anything else.
Yeah, if you're ever bored and just want to have fun, just go to Shodan. You'll love it.
Yeah, so that's basically all I'll have for you guys. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions about what I covered, or if you want to know more, just feel free to hit me up either here or on Slack. Yeah.
I just hope we don't pop into something bad with this.